These are 7 Roblox games that perfectly embody the 7 deadly sins, and today we'll be discussing all of them, starting with pride, which refers to the excessive belief in one's own abilities, with an inflated ego of self-importance and arrogance. While many games have fallen victim to this sin, none can match the level of Adopt Me and its community. Developed by Uplift Games, Adopt Me started as an MMO role-playing game where players could pretend to be a child getting adopted or a parent adopting a child. However, a year later, the developer shifted the game from adopting and taking care of children to virtual pets. With more and more updates, they started to add onto this feature, slowly making it the main focus of the game. While some players missed the old Adopt Me, many were excited to check out the new additions to the game, which turned out to be a massive hit. By June 2020, Adopt Me became one of the most popular games in Roblox, with more than 6 million active players. Soon, players started to flex their rare pets, which only created a frenzy among each other. This created a toxic environment around the game, with many players starting to trade and sometimes even beg for pets. I love how most people in Adopt Me beg for pets, and when you give it to them, they run off without saying thank you. Since the cost of pets was very high within the game, players started to look for other platforms which were selling them for real money, resulting in countless people being scammed by suspicious sellers. What started as a game of adopting and raising children quickly turned into something focused on showing off pets. The developers capitalized on their young user base to fall into pride and made a ton of money, close to $60 million. However, unlike the other games in this list, which faced a major drop, Adopt Me is still on the top with more than 50,000 active users and 35 billion visits. While Adopt Me exploited the human tendency of pride, Soul's RNG caters to one of the most common sins, Sloth, which refers to being lazy and not wanting to put in any effort. Developed by Soul's Studio, the game is based on a probability system where the player has to roll in order to obtain the auras. However, the auras are solely dependent on your luck, starting from the most common ones, which are easier to obtain with a probability of 1 in 2, to some of the most outrageous percentages like 1 in 100 million. Rather than focusing on making money from their players' Robux spending, they instead focused on making the players stay on the game for as long as possible. Due to the engagement-based payout system, the developers are incentivized to keep the players in the game in order to make money. However, unlike other games, Soul's RNG lacks an open world map to explore, and doesn't even have any notable features. The only action the player has to do is to collect potions scattered around the island. And with its auto-roll feature, the game quickly turned out to be an AFK experience where you solely rely on luck. Roblox players started to express their opinion about the game, stating that the game is a waste of my time. It's just without losing anything. You can't even do anything with the auras. However, the same cannot be said about the next game on the list that was destroyed by the very developers who created it due to their huge ego and anger issues. We're talking about Kaizen. It is based on a popular Japanese anime, Jujutsu Kaisen, and was developed by Rev and Sean. However, the game was embroiled in controversy right from its release due to the lack of features and originality, like a skill tree system, which is commonly found in similar games. Even though the game was not well developed, the developers, instead of apologizing and correcting their mistakes, started to boast about the amount of money they had made from the release. One of the developers, Rev, confirmed that the game had earned around $10,000 in an hour and a total of $30,000 on its launch day. He even went so far as to call the players brokies. Rev further taunted the players by stating that he was about to blow all the money on his girlfriend. Before we continue with the rest of the video, I just wanted to say that we are so close to 10,000 subscribers, and it would help a lot if you could subscribe. When things were starting to get out of hand, the developers apologized to the players and promised to relaunch the game within 24 hours. But many were skeptical as to how much they would change to the game, and rightly so, as they made no significant updates, and the game to this day looks like a wasteland with nothing to talk about. However, unlike the devs of Kaizen, the next developer on the list developed a game that is not only highly inappropriate for kids, but also shares a history of being associated with highly questionable content. Lust is an intense or uncontrolled desire that involves degrading others as mere objects to fulfill these urges, especially for sexual gratification, and MeepCity is the perfect candidate for this sin. Developed by Alex Neutron, MeepCity is a game with a social hangout experience with features like minigames, roleplay, and parties. MeepCity became one of the most successful games on the platform, even becoming the first to surpass 1 billion visits. And the reason for its popularity was one of the most controversial features of the game: parties. The Party Portal is a feature that allows players to create or join parties that are hosted by other members. Well, for a social hangout game like MeepCity, it completely made sense to have a party hall for players to gather and enjoy. But the reality was far from the truth. These parties were not the family-friendly events one might expect. Instead, they contained some of the most disturbing and inappropriate content on Roblox. Despite receiving massive backlash from the community, the developer of the game, Alex Neutron, didn't care and refused to take any action, stating that, "Moderation is not my job. I make games, report them, and Roblox will take care of it." Slowly, the game turned into an online dating place with highly inappropriate things going on. As the game grew more and more popular, it eventually made its way to the YouTube platform and was covered extensively due to adult content found on a game primarily used by minors. This was quickly noticed by Roblox, and after a lot of scrutiny, the parties were removed from the game on February 16, 2022. After the removal of parties, a lot of players lost interest in the game and blamed Alex Neutron. All the backlash, bypassing, inappropriate behavior, and party removal on MeepCity could have easily been prevented if Alex hired a moderation team or a working report system instead of being stubborn and relying on Roblox. Now, MeepCity is just a shell of its former past with less than 5,000 active users. However, the next game on the list was created by one of the most famous and well-respected developers of the platform, and represents envy. Envy can be best described as a resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck, and the game which fits this is none other than Shindo Life. Shindo Life is a Naruto-inspired game that was developed by the Rel World Group. However, the game was not always known as Shindo Life. Rather, it started as Shinobi Life with different features compared to the current version. The original game faced legal troubles due to copyright claims from the Naruto franchise and was taken down. In order to save their game from being taken down again, the developers scrambled to create a rebranded version, keeping the core mechanics similar but making some changes to the character designs. The rebranded game was welcomed with huge support as players were excited to check out their favorite characters. However, as Shindo Life gained popularity, the developers shifted the game's abilities towards more highly damaging AoE type combat from skill-based combat. This created a massive imbalance of abilities between the players, which made many quit. To make matters worse, the developers decided to add abilities outside of the Naruto franchise, like adding abilities of Spider-Man to the game, causing players to be disappointed. People would say it's an anime game, but you got Captain America's shield in it. Nobody asked for Captain America's shield to be in Shindo. Shindo dying and Rel adding any like Spider-Man to kill this game faster. Though it was not welcomed by many, the game still racked in a lot of players. However, things were slowly going downhill, as many people stopped playing with no interest whatsoever. So, the developers decided to drop the race update, which was the final nail in the coffin as many players left the game for good, with some calling it simply weird. In the race update, the developers added a new feature called Bloodlines, which allowed players to choose different playable races, each having their unique abilities. However, the players were furious. But why? In order to get the ability, the player has to get the highest rank, Z rank. On top of that, the player had to collect DNA strands of the defeated boss and spin to unlock the race. But what made it more challenging is that players needed to use a special currency called Rel coins to spin for races, which was very time-consuming to obtain. Adding the Bloodline feature forced players to spend a lot of time or money on the game. And as time passed by, the developers decided to stop releasing their weekly updates, which was a clear sign that they had found something more eye-catching and were no longer as invested in the game. On January 4, 2023, the Rel World Group announced their new project, Nindon, which was welcomed by a lot of fans due to its unique approach and character design. 2 weeks later, the developers announced a new One Piece style game, Rel Seas. This decision was likely motivated by the success of other popular anime-inspired games like Blox Fruits and its competitors. It was clear that the Rel group wanted to achieve the same level of popularity. They were envious of their competitors' growth, which drove them to quickly change direction and try to capitalize on the next big trend. Even though the developers are not as focused with Shindo life now, Rel Group is still highly regarded due to their determination to make their players happy, unlike the next game that clearly represents greed, which is the intense and selfish desire for something, especially money, power, or control. And the game that clearly fits this description is Blade Ball. Developed by Y1DDY and Chunch Bunch, Blade Ball is an action game that has a similar gameplay to Dodgeball, with players using swords to defend themselves from the main mechanic of the game, the ball. If it hits, the player gets eliminated and sent back to the lobby. Though many similar games were released in the past, none could come close to Blade Ball, racking in more than 3 billion visits from June 2023. However, things started to fall apart when the developers decided to make it a pay-to-win game. Though most of the skins and abilities were free to use, it was no match to the ones which were obtained from Robux. Over time, the players grew increasingly unhappy with the developers for not adding new features to the game, as they were nothing but boring and repetitive. They also accused the developers of turning the game into a cash cow with complete disregard of their players, with one going on to say, "Can you do one update where you don't have to gamble? If you don't have money, there's literally nothing new. No wonder your game is dying." As a result, the active user base of Blade Ball dropped by over 80%, from 160,000 players to just 31,000. But at least Blade Ball had an interesting concept for a game, which is why it gained a lot of players upon release, unlike the next game, which perfectly represents Gluttony. Gluttony refers to the excessive and uncontrolled consumption of food, wealth, or excess of anything, and the game that best represents gluttony is Fruit Warriors. To be more precise, it is the developer of the game, Axior. Axior is a popular YouTuber in the Roblox gaming community, with over 1 million subscribers. He's well known for his Blox Fruits content, and was also one of the first from the Roblox community to reach 1 million subscribers on the platform. Not only did Axior hold a strong YouTube following, but also had a strong bond with his audience, garnering over 600,000 members in his Discord community. However, everything would change on October 6, 2022, when Rel Games announced their new One Piece-inspired game, Rel Seas. Many Rel Games fans were excited to hear about the new game, as the developers are well known for their previous games, Shindo Life and RPG Beyond. So, a lot of Roblox players were delighted to hear the news. But, to everyone's surprise, Axior seemed unimpressed, as he responded with a rather dismissive statement. Rel Games? No thanks. His seemingly arrogant attitude forced the developers to release a reply video addressing Axior's comments. The brothers went on to talk about the hate they are receiving and asked for their fan support. Axior would go on to release his own One Piece-inspired game, Fruit Warriors. The game was dubbed the Rel Seas Killer, and his fans were eagerly anticipating its release. However, the reality of Fruit Warriors was far from what Axior's fans had expected. The game turned out to be nothing more than a bandit killer simulator, leaving many disappointed and questioning his attitude towards Rel Games. After a week, his game quickly died out, and Axior was mocked for turning his audience against another creator for no apparent reason, destroying his online reputation, causing the official trailer of Fruit Warriors to be filled with hate comments such as, "Nothing crazy, no crazy shenanigans, just straight up ass. This game has hidden talent, let's keep it that way." Interestingly, ever since the release of Fruit Warriors, Axior has not uploaded a single new video, which speaks volumes about his downfall. At present, Fruit Warriors has a staggering 8 active players, while the anticipation for Rel Seas' release is growing every day.